that idea to fix other messages in the development platform.
Okay, we might get started, everyone. Welcome to the platform briefing. I'd like to start by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where I am today, which is Ngunnawal land here in Canberra. Pay my respect to their elders past and present and acknowledge their deep and continuing connection to lands and waters. For anyone who hasn't met me yet, I'm Jess. I'm the person who's been filling your inboxes with updates about concurrent sessions. I'm the Learning and Innovation Lead here at ACFID, and I'm also a member of the conference program team. This is my third year shepherding the concurrent sessions through to delivery at the event, but of course it's my first year working with virtual concurrent sessions. So we're all on an exciting journey together. We have about an hour together today to talk about the briefing, talk about the platform, sorry. I have a bit of an agenda for us today. So I'm going to start off by giving a quick recap of the technical requirements. So those were the tech requirements that I sent out last week, maybe the week before. Time is a construct these days. So I'll just recap those, what they are and why we have them. Then we'll get to the basics of live stream broadcast before introducing the online platform that we'll be using, that is the Delegate Connect platform. Then I've got some tips to share with everyone about interacting with delegates and also for content sharing. And then I'll just run through next steps for preparing your session in the final lead up to conference. Now, I did want to flag that you can ask questions at any time. If you think of a question, just unmute yourself or raise your hand or type your question in the chat. More than happy to stop and answer any questions as we go along. But to begin with, I have two questions for all of you. My first question is, do you know which day of conference your session has been scheduled to? I see some nods. That's very encouraging. Very good. My second question is, do you know if you are on a stage or in a Zoom room for your session? Nods again. Very good. And part of this briefing will actually explain what is the difference between a stage and a Zoom room. And there are some key differences that you'll need to be aware of. But to begin with, I'll just give a quick recap of the technical requirements that we sent out previously. So the first, most basic one is to have a computer. It can be Mac, PC, laptop, desktop, doesn't matter, just need a computer. The other equipment that you need are speakers, microphone, and a camera. They don't have to be super whiz bang. They can just be the ones that are built into the device that you're using or that your speakers are using. If you do think that's going to be an issue though, best to email me as soon as possible to let me know so we can work on that. We're also asking that all your speakers check, or not necessarily all your speakers, but at least one person involved in your session has a phone connection, so either a mobile or a landline, just in case everything goes super sideways and we do have a way to communicate with you that is not based on the platform. The other connection that you'll need is a high-speed internet connection. So it does require relatively high speeds to be involved in delivering a session. Basically, if you and your speakers are confident in your internet to do a meeting like this, then that should be sufficient for delivering a session at conference. The other things that we recommend is to have Google Chrome browser installed. That is the most compatible browser with the platform that we're using. Most other ones are fine as well. The only exception is Internet Explorer, which apparently does very, very wonky things to the platform. So that one should be avoided. Our other recommendation is to have Zoom installed. Zoom is used in the delivery of sessions at conference, and we do recommend getting that installed on devices before the session time, just to minimize the stress around getting new software set up on a device. Any questions so far about the technical requirements? Richard.
Just that latest advice on Zoom, is that as a fallback? I mean, so, and second to that, if for example we are in the Zoom room, which I don't think I am, then does everybody need to have sort of advanced Zoom or just basic Zoom?
Great question. So Zoom is integrated with the platform, so it doesn't matter if you are on a stage or in a Zoom room. You and your speakers will be interacting with Zoom, but you won't be the hosts or administrators of it, so you don't need to have a paid account. You can be just signed in via a basic account, because that's all managed by us at the sort of platform side. And you don't need to be a super user either. All of the technical stuff will be looked after by our platform providers and by us in the program team.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bronwyn? Oh, I think you're still muted. I think I can unmute you though.
Excellent. My speakers will be based somewhere across places in the Pacific. So just managing the various technology levels and internet levels that are available. Is this platform, how's that likely to work in places like Solomon Islands or coming out of Solomon Islands?
Great question.
Don't laugh. Please don't laugh.
Completely understand. It does require a reasonably stable internet connection. For delegates, it's not as high, but for speakers, because it is using video. So basically, if the internet connection is capable of something like this Zoom meeting, then that's great. If that's not looking likely, we are trying to scope places across the Pacific that could act as hubs. We are trying to do that. I can't make any guarantees at this stage, but yeah, we're trying to find ways to make us all feel less nervous about having to rely on the internet.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
Alrighty, I might move on to the basics of live stream broadcast. So this is going to be a live event across all 4 days, which is going to involve a lot of adrenaline, I think. It will be completely live, which means that in your sessions, you and your speakers, everything that is happening around you will be visible and audible to the delegates. It also means that even if there is pre-recorded content, that still has to be broadcast in a live setting. So we're pressing play and pause and stop on pre-recorded segments inside a live setting. So it is completely live. The way it will work is that it will be conducted in Zoom and then broadcast by the Delegate Connect platform. What that means, I'll describe in more detail on the next slide. But before we get there, I do need to talk through the key roles that will be involved in the delivery of each session. So the most important roles for each session are your speakers. Without them, we have nothing. And there's also a key role played in chair. So a lot of you have panel sessions proposed for your concurrent sessions. And in that you've proposed someone who is either the lead speaker or the chairperson, moderator, MC person. That would be the person who fits into that chair role. So the speakers and the chair are the two most important roles. They're supported by a buddy. So that's someone like me from the program team who is matched with you in the lead up to conference, and they become the person you can call on for absolutely anything. So you'll have their contact details. If in the final week leading into conference, you desperately need to contact someone about the program or the platform or anything at all, they'll be your person. They will also attend your session as well. They'll be there to provide support, backup, hand-holding, whatever you need. They'll be your person. The other support person is the operator, and that is the technical person provided by the platform. So every session that is run on a stage will have a broadcast operator. And that's the person who looks after all the technical parts. So they'll be there for technical troubleshooting. They'll also be the person who brings you into the virtual space where you'll run your session and just make sure that everything's working in terms of cameras and speakers and microphones and that kind of thing. So all of those roles work together to deliver the session to delegates, which are a separate role as well inside of the platform. So the way that the platform works is that, and this is just for, I'm going to describe how the platform works just for stages. If you're in a Zoom room, this description doesn't apply to you, a different setup does, but first we'll start with what applies to the stages, which is that every session is delivered via Zoom. So the experience for speakers and chairs is that they receive a Zoom link and they press that and it takes them to a Zoom meeting. They will be placed into a waiting room initially, and then they'll be brought into the Zoom meeting by the broadcast operator. And from there, they have control of audio and video. So they can mute and unmute, they can screen share, and those are the two things, the audio and the video are the two things that get pulled out of Zoom and taken across to the Delegate Connect platform. It's very important to note that it's only audio and only video that gets pulled across. All the other functions of a Zoom meeting stay inside Zoom. So the chat does not get pulled across. The ability to do Zoom polling does not get pulled across. The same goes for breakout rooms. That does not get pulled across to the Delegate Connect platform. It is just the Zoom audio and the Zoom video of your speakers and your chair. The other important thing to note is that delegates are not touching the Zoom meeting at all. Delegates do not go into the Zoom meeting. Delegates only experience your session on the platform. And they experience that by seeing the broadcast of the audio and video that gets pulled out of Zoom, wrapped around with the platform functions. And I have them listed out there. And the main ones are the chat stream, the Q&A box, polling, and the ability to run pre-recorded video. And I'll just talk through each of those functions quickly because they are a little bit different from how they work in Zoom. So the chat stream is aptly named because if you have enough people attending your session, it is just a stream of content. And that's where people drop their comments and their greetings and their smiley faces and clappy hands. It's just a rolling wall of comments on your session, greetings to one another, emojis, that kind of thing. Then there's a Q&A box. And the Q&A box is the structured part of the platform where people submit their questions. So delegates submit their questions to the Q&A box. They get moderated sort of behind the curtain, which I'll speak to in a moment. And then approved questions get released and are shown to all delegates. There's also a polling function. Full disclosure, we have been told that the polling function is not as good as what you might be familiar with in Zoom, for example. We've been told that there's probably a 5 to 7 second delay on using polling functions. And if you want to do informal polls, we've been told the best way to do it is to actually use the chat stream to do that. So to verbally pose a question to the delegates in your session, what do you think of X? and they can, you know, place a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat stream, and you sort of see a rolling, scrolling wall of responses as a way to informally poll people. Formal polling is possible, but it's not as nice as what we're used to when we've been doing all our polling in Zoom. So that is one thing to bear in mind. And then pre-recorded video is the last function there. I've popped that into the platform rather than the Zoom box. So if you do a lot of screen sharing in Zoom, you might already know that you can screen share and show a video. That is possible, but we don't recommend it because there is then too many links in the chain between the video that you're showing on your device and what delegates are seeing. So there could be some audio video sync issues, pixelation, that kind of thing. So our recommendation, if you're having pre-recorded video content, is to get it to us so that we can sit it in the Delegate Connect platform, and your broadcast operator can do the manual switching between live speaker content and pre-recorded speaker content. Now, I just mentioned the broadcast operator, who is one of the support roles who's sort of like sitting behind the curtain. This diagram is maybe a little misleading because it makes it look like there's a third system, but there isn't really. It's just sort of the admin area of each of the systems that I've already talked about. The admin area of the Zoom system is completely managed by the broadcast operator. They are the person who creates the meeting. They are the meeting host. They completely look after the Zoom system. And then the admin area of Delegate Connect is where your buddy and your chair have a bit more to do. So both the buddy and the chair also sit in the Zoom meeting room with your speakers. They do not get shown if their cameras are off. So the settings are, as long as your camera is on, you will be part of the broadcast. If your camera is off, you cannot be part of the broadcast unless you unmute yourself and start singing quietly to yourself during the session. But you do sit in the meeting, so you can have interactions like through the Zoom chat with everybody else who's involved in running the session. But you also have access to the admin area of Delegate Connect. I say area, which again is a little misleading, but it means that you have a permission in your account on the Delegate Connect platform that gives you this big red button. And if you press the big red button, it sort of like pulls away the curtain and you can see the moderation aspects of the Delegate Connect platform. The main things are the chat stream, sorry, my mistake. The main things are the Q&A box and the polling, which the chair and also the buddy, if you wish, can have control of. So it's in that admin area that the chair can moderate the questions that are coming in. As I said, the questions aren't shown to all delegates until they're approved by the person who's doing the moderation, which in this case is the chair. So it's the chair who sits there and says, oh, that's a good question. I'm going to put that up. So that gets shown. That's not a relevant question. I won't approve that to go through, that sort of thing. In speaking to some other session organisers in the previous platform briefings, their concern was that, my chair is going to be doing so much. This is a lot for a chair to do. You can draw on your buddy if that is freaking you out or potentially going to freak out your chair. You do have your buddy there to support in those sorts of back-end roles. I'll pause for questions. Richard?
Is it feasible or not to have another buddy who's sort of fairly close to the issues and what you're trying to achieve, who could help with the sorting and sifting and, you know, or for a variety of reasons, are we just really restricted to the ACFID buddy and the chair?
No, I don't think we're restricted in that way. I think that's a really good point. because your buddy may not have any expertise in the topic that you're talking to, and so might find it hard to do moderation of delegate questions for you. So yeah, I'm very much of the mind that as easy as we can make this for your speakers and your chair, then let's do it. And if that involves bringing in another person to sit behind the scenes and do the moderation, then that's fantastic. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? I am fully aware I just did a lot of information in a very small amount of time.
Jess, I've got a question. This is Michaela.
Hi, yes.
Hi. My question is in terms of, oh, now I've gone completely blank. In terms of the platform, oh no, sorry, I've gone completely blank about what I was going to ask you. Sorry, it just went completely out of my mind.
No, that's completely fine.
Sorry. I don't know how that happened.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one who does that. Maybe my next slide will prompt something. So the next slide is really getting to what is the difference between stages and Zoom rooms. So now that we understand what the platform is, I can now distinguish for you the difference between working inside the platform and working in a Zoom room that sits outside the platform. That's the main difference between the stages and the Zoom room. So anything that's on a stage is built into the actual platform. And so it's just, remember, pulling the audio and video across from a Zoom meeting. And so everything then is broadcast inside the Delegate Connect platform. It's very seamless and it's able to handle large numbers of people. But the trade-off there is that delegates can't turn on their cameras or microphones. That just manages the load, makes it much easier to handle, but it does do things for interaction in your session. Interaction then becomes largely around the comments in the live chat stream and the questions that come through via that moderated Q&A box. However, we did receive a number of EOIs from you all that said delegate interaction is core to what this session wants to do, what we want to achieve. And so we've added this option of Zoom rooms, and they sit outside of the Delegate Connect platform. So we'll have separate Zoom meetings set up that sit outside the Delegate Connect platform, and rather than dragging the audio and video across to the platform, we're actually taking delegates out of the platform and bringing them into your Zoom room. And they will then work exactly like this Zoom meeting. Delegates can turn on their cameras, they can turn on their microphones, you can have comments and questions through the chat box, you can have breakout rooms, you can have polling, you can do funky things with your screen sharing. That is the main difference between the stages that sit natively inside Delegate Connect and the Zoom rooms that take delegates out and bring them to you into your Zoom meetings. Does that make sense for everybody? Are there any questions about the difference between the stages and the Zoom rooms, or any concerns? Silence is good. So based on that, you will need to, again, check whether you're a stage or whether you're a Zoom room. And you'll also then have to think about what that means for the design and preparation and delivery of your session, because they are different and they do mean different things in terms of interacting with delegates. On that front, we do have some tips for interacting with delegates. We've had a chance to observe some sessions being run on our platform, and also just some things that we've learned in 6 months of doing virtual sessions. that there are multiple ways that you can interact with delegates. We would really recommend thinking about resources and links that you can share based on your session and based on your speakers. Inside the platform, no matter whether you are allocated to a stage or allocated to a Zoom room, your session will have a dedicated space on the platform. It'll be like a hub for your session where you'll be able to go and add resources and add links and have that kind of interaction with delegates. We do encourage everyone to think about regularly posing and inviting questions from delegates. So throw things to the delegates that they can comment on in the chat stream, or invite formal questions through the moderated Q&A box. We'd also really encourage you to consider ways to keep the conversation going. This doesn't necessarily have to be a single point in time for you or your speakers. In previous conferences, we've had sessions provide a link where people can sign up for a mailing list to keep up to date with what's happening, or to register for a future event, that kind of thing. So that you can think about ways to just keep that conversation going, keep that connection with delegates, because it doesn't just have to happen in the 4 days of Oceania Connect. And then the final thing is, you can also always take advantage of the networking functionality that we'll have available over the 4 days, which will take people, all delegates, whether they're in a speaker role or not, into a space where people can turn on their cameras and their videos and get together in sort of small groups and network together in a way that we really hope goes some way to replicating that wonderful thing that you can have with face-to-face conferences, where you bump into someone at the coffee cart and you get to have a lovely chat with them. So those are some of our tips for interacting with delegates. We also have some tips for sharing content, and this is particularly around screen sharing. So if you or your speakers do want to share like a PowerPoint presentation, we do recommend using large text and high contrast colors. Don't assume that delegates will be viewing your session on a large screen. A lot of people will be viewing on a small screen, so not too much text, and if you are using text, make it big, make it high contrast. We also really would like you to get permission to use copyrighted materials in anything that you share. So we can't undo any sharing once it's been shared, and we might be limited in the editing we can make to recordings of sessions. So it's really important that you do have approval for any copyrighted materials that are included in your session. We learned this last year at conference when we had an amazing session that showed a video that had some music playing in the video, and they did not have permission to use that music. And as soon as we uploaded that recording to YouTube, it got taken down. So do check the status of any materials, the copyright status of any materials that you want to use in your presentation. And if in doubt, maybe leave it out. We've also learned that it's very handy to close anything you don't want to share. Anything that might have confidential information, anything that might be private or sensitive, just close it. Close the tab, close the document. If you accidentally screen share something or share the wrong screen or something like that, we can't undo that. Everyone will see it and it's out there. So just keep that in mind. The other tip that we have is consider avoiding sharing content during panel discussions. Presentations are completely fine. We know that you know, there's some weighty content that's being discussed in these sessions, and it might be helpful to do a presentation during parts of your sessions. But during the actual panel discussions, we found it's much more effective just to not have any presentation shared, and just to have the faces of your panel up as they interact with each other and react to each other's comments and questions and that kind of thing. So we do recommend not sharing content during panel discussions. I'll pause again there and check if there's any questions around those things, around interacting with delegates or sharing content or anything at all. I've just thought to check my chat box as well, just to see if there's anything in there. Nope, all good.
Hi, Jess. I've got a question.
Oh yes, fire away.
This is Eileen. Sorry, I was late on another call and I joined this one late, so I'm not sure if you've covered, but just in regards to the last slide, what about previously there have been concurrent sessions that they sort of Chatham House rules or sort of private sorts of things. Is it possible to not have a session recorded or shared on YouTube?
I think by default we will be recording, but we will be checking about making any recordings available afterwards. So that was the process that we had last year, that we did check, firstly that it was okay to record that content, and also that everything was represented in the way that speakers basically wanted to represent themselves, because you know sometimes you can accidentally say the wrong thing, it comes out all garbled, that kind of thing. So it is part of our process to check first, but we can definitely note any that you do want to apply Chatham House Rule 4, and just say this is not going to be broadcast after that single point in time. That's completely possible. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Richard.
Related to that question, if there are any journalists attending the conference, will we know about that in advance? Or should we just expect that unless we have sort of declared that it's Chatham House rules, participants could find themselves quoted in the media?
Yeah, it's that's a great question. And we have at every conference. We do know that some media do attend, and we can't predict where they'll go in a face-to-face conference or a virtual conference. We don't know which session they'll go to. So it is worth bearing in mind that, you know, there could be media in the session. We do recommend that sessions think about the housekeeping that they want to lay out at the beginning of your session, you know, whether this is going to be a confidential conversation, that kind of thing. Yes.
Thank you.
And then did I see somebody had raised their hand? I thought I saw something come up. Was there another question, guys?
Yeah, hi Jess, it's Martin Kennedy from Campus Housing.
Hi.
So I just had myself on mute. Yeah, multiple times a day normally. So you mentioned before that the sessions are all being recorded. Presumably there's no objection or no reason why organisations can't use their own excerpt from the broader recording and publish that on websites and, you know, various other platforms after the conference if they're so inclined?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we're trying to get clarity on that ourselves. So we do know that there's a sort of like post-broadcast option available with the platform where people who have purchased a ticket can go in later and watch the sessions that they weren't able to go to. We're just confirming how the recording can be transmitted and used outside of the platform. So what kind of file is generated, that kind of thing. So we're fairly confident that that's possible. I'd be really disappointed if it wasn't, but we just have to check what's going to get spit out of the back end by the platform. But
okay, sure. But you'll keep us posted on that then? Yeah,
we'd see no problem with sessions taking their recording and using it, you know, running post-production on it, using snippets of it as you see fit. I mean, you guys have gone through all the effort of designing and preparing and delivering these sessions. You should have the product at the end of it as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions, guys? Alrighty, I might just quickly run through these next steps for preparing your session. So if you haven't already, it'd be fantastic for you to complete the session details form that I've included in the last couple of email updates. That's just asking for the title of your session, a short description, and then the names and email addresses of your speakers. That's so that we can set up the platform with the section for your session. If you think it's going to change at a later date, that's okay. We'll provide an update option. And also, once you're added to the platform, you'll be able to go in and make changes to your session, and speakers will be able to make changes to themselves as well. So at this stage, we're just asking for names and email addresses so their basic account can be created. And then once we're ready, we'll send across some guidance for all of your speakers about how they can go in, log into their account and change their account, like adding their bio, adding their headshot, adding their social media channels, all that jazz. But to get us started in that process, we do need you to complete that session details form. Other things to start looking at, we'd recommend mapping and timing each segment of your session. So start thinking about all the moving parts in your session, like introducing speakers, introducing the topic, pivoting from one topic to the next, or from one speaker to the next, audience Q&A, that kind of thing. So map out all the parts and also map out how long you think they're going to take. Especially if you're going to be doing housekeeping as well, because that can end up being a big time suck in your session. And we do have quite a tight program as well. So it's really tricky for us to let you go over time if your session is running over time. If there is a session that's running after you, we will have to close your session, the screens will have to go black, and we will have to go to the next part of the program. So sticking to time, very important. We encourage you to share this briefing with your speakers in some form. Summarize it back to them if you wish. I have been recording the briefing, and we will post it privately on ACFID's YouTube channel, and I'll send a link around. So it won't be publicly available for everybody out there, but you guys will have a direct link. So you can share that with your speakers, point them to the parts that you think are going to be useful for them in understanding how the platform works, what their experience is going to be like when they're delivering the session. Contact me if you would like to have any follow-ups. Like, I'd be more than happy to meet with all the speakers of your session, answer any questions, brief them on what the experience is going to be like. If your chairs want to talk to me, we'd be more than happy to catch up with them just to run through what the experience will be. We'll also be sending guidance from our platform provider for people who have speaking and chair roles as well. The final thing that I recommend is to schedule a dress rehearsal session with your speakers. So stick in a Zoom meeting in the next couple of weeks where you can all go through, like, do a dry run of your session and check that everybody knows what's happening, everybody knows what their role is, the flow does work. We do these dress rehearsals for our webinars and they are invaluable because they help everyone get really comfy about how the session's going to run, but it can also point out to us points in the session that might not be working, like that structure isn't quite right, or why don't we do this segment earlier on, that kind of thing. So highly recommend doing that. Next steps in terms of what I'm going to do for you guys, I will be getting this briefing video posted online, and I'll send a link around that you can then share onto your session speakers. We'll be pulling together a template for you that will help you map the timed segments of your session. I'll also be sending around a link that speakers and chairs can use to register for free. We just have to make sure that that's based on our confirmed speaker list, so that confirmed speakers, support people, chairs matches up with the number of free registrations that are going through the system. And then we'll, as I said before, we'll be sending around speaker guidance, tips, instructions, that kind of thing. You'll be hearing from me a lot, basically, in the remaining 26 days, 17 hours and 30 minutes until the first day of conference. So that's the end of the platform briefing, everyone. But I did just want to open up for any questions at all, questions about the platform, the program, the event overall. Yeah, now is a chance. It's not the only chance because I am your dedicated resource. You can contact me anytime that you need to with questions, concerns, queries about the concurrent sessions. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions right now.
Yes, I do actually remember what my question was. Session delegates, will they register beforehand so that we know roughly how many people will attend? Or will it just be that people will link in just before the session? Because we were trying to work out how we would work. If there are only going to be a few people, then we may not do breakout rooms. But if they're going to be more, we would do breakout rooms.
It's a very good question, and it's one we grapple with every single year. So the short answer is no. People will not be pre-registering. We have tried that in the past, but no one ever sticks to their word. People turn up for sessions that they didn't register for, or they change their mind because their friend is going to a different session. We do have a function in the platform where delegates can create like a personal program for themselves. Like they can go through and be like, oh, I like that session, and add it to their personal program. I'm not exactly sure if we can see that data, but it's very unlikely that we'd be able to do anything with that data in real time. Like we just don't have enough people for someone to be watching what delegates are selecting as their personal programs and then letting you guys know. So it's really just wait and see, which is probably not the answer you were looking for. Yes. Just part of the,
okay. We know that. I mean, we can work around it, but thanks.
Yeah, but we would recommend that you and all your speakers, you know, boast about the fact that you've made it onto the program. You know, put it out on your social media channels and across your networks. Hey, I'm speaking at Oceania Connect 2020. And to that end, we're also, we're putting together a little speaker pack. So it's like a one-pager of tips, like use this hashtag, say this kind of thing. And we'll have like little social media cards. And we'll share that with you guys, and you can share that onto your speakers to just profile the fact that you're part of this event, your speakers are part of this event, and also trying to entice people to your session.
Thanks.
No worries. Any other questions? Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of this briefing. My most efficient briefing yet. I've gotten like 5 minutes quicker each time I've done this. Who knows if I've done, what would have happened if I'd done like an extra 2. But as I said, we will be recording this. I will send around the link, but I am always available for any and all questions. If you do think it would be valuable for me to meet with your speakers, for us to have a separate catch up around how the platform or the sessions will work, then just let me know, more than happy. But in the meantime, we might wrap it up, everybody. I'll let you all get back to the rest of your days, and you'll be hearing from me, hopefully before the end of the week, with the link to this video and some other links and instructions and next steps. But in the meantime, have a fabulous day, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jess. Bye.